In 1985, Coca-Cola committed what corporate historians still call the most catastrophic mistake in marketing history. They threw away their 99-year-old secret formula, panicked, and released New Coke. Wall Street called it the death of an empire. Pepsi's CEO literally declared a company-wide holiday, giving every employee a paid day off to celebrate their rival's self-destruction. There's only one problem with that story. It was a trap. While the entire world was laughing at Coke's public disaster, Pepsi was executing a business strategy so aggressive, so mathematically cold, that today, Pepsi doesn't just rival Coca-Cola, they crush them by nearly double in raw revenue. So how did a second-place soda brand pull off the ultimate stealth war? And why does Coca-Cola still act like they're the ones winning? To understand how Pepsi won, you have to go back to 1975, when Pepsi fired the first shot in what became known as the Pepsi Challenge. They set up tables in malls, poured unlabeled cups of Coke and Pepsi, and asked strangers to choose the better taste. Pepsi won almost every single time. Why? Because Pepsi is statistically sweeter and contains a blast of citric acid. In a single-sip blind test, human neurology always prefers the burst of sweet intensity. Coke panicked. They changed their formula to beat Pepsi in sip tests, creating the infamous New Coke failure. What Coke didn't realize was the sip test paradox. A single sip of Pepsi tastes great, but drinking an entire 12-ounce can, Pepsi's sweetness becomes overwhelming, while Coke's smoother, less sweet flavor profile keeps you drinking the whole thing. Coke thought they had a taste problem, but Pepsi was playing a completely different game. In 1965, a decade before the taste wars, Pepsi CEO Donald Kendall made a move that corporate historians called pure madness. He merged Pepsi with a potato chip company, Frito-Lay. Coke executives literally laughed. "We are a beverage empire," Coke declared. "We don't sell greasy food." What Coke failed to see was basic human biology. When you eat a salty Lay's chip, the sodium hits your tongue, triggering a physiological thirst panic. You reach for a sugary Pepsi to wash it down. But the high sugar leaves a sticky coating in your mouth, which immediately triggers your brain to crave salt. Pepsi didn't just buy a snack company, they built an infinite, biologically trapped dopamine loop. And they used that loop to hijack retail stores. When Pepsi meets with retail giants like Walmart, they don't ask for beverage space. They leverage their 60% monopoly over savory snacks. If you want hyper-profitable Doritos and Cheetos on your front shelves, you put Pepsi beverages in the checkout aisles. Coke owned the beverage aisle. Pepsi bought the whole damn store. Pepsi's aggression wasn't just limited to grocery stores. In 1959, Pepsi pulled off one of the strangest geopolitical moves in history. They negotiated a deal to become the first capitalist product sold in the Soviet Union. When the Soviet currency became worthless internationally, the USSR paid Pepsi in vodka. And eventually, a fleet of 17 submarines, a frigate, a cruiser, and a destroyer. For a brief moment, Pepsi commanded the 6th largest military submarine fleet on Earth. Coke watched Pepsi build this massive physical empire and made a calculated countermove. Enjoy your low margins, we're going to sell syrup. Selling chips in physical cans is brutally expensive, requiring massive factories, perishable logistics, and fleet shipping. Coca-Cola doesn't manufacture most of the Coke you drink. They manufacture a super concentrated syrup and sell it to independent bottling companies worldwide, pushing 80% of the labor, delivery, and manufacturing costs off their balance sheet. Pepsi makes $91 billion, but burns a fortune keeping its physical machinery running. Coke makes $45 billion, but sits back and collects hyper-profitable, high-margin royalties. Pepsi bought the retail shelf, but Coke bought global geography. Then came the secret battle for your local restaurant, stadium, and college campus. Ever walked into a restaurant, asked for a Coke, and had the server say, "Is Pepsi okay?" That awkward moment isn't an accident. It is the result of multi-million-dollar exclusivity contracts signed behind locked doors. Coke locked down McDonald's, storing their syrup in custom, temperature-controlled steel tanks, so it tastes better there than anywhere else on Earth. Pepsi responded in the 90s by straight-up buying Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut, forcing millions of consumers to drink Pepsi products every time they wanted a taco. They systematically removed your power of choice before you even opened the menu. When carbonated soda sales began to plunge across the Western world due to health concerns, both giants pivoted. Coke bought Costa Coffee, Fairlife Milk, and Body Armor. Pepsi bought stakes in Celsius, acquired Rockstar, and doubled down on health-conscious snacks like Quaker Oats and Stacy's Pita Chips. So who actually won the corporate war? If you measure by cultural power, brand identity, and raw profit margins, Coca-Cola remains the undisputed emotional king of drinks. Coke isn't liquid. It's American nostalgia served in a red glass bottle. But if you measure by total financial scale, adaptability, and complete market coverage, Pepsi quietly pulled off the greatest business pivot of the 21st century. They tricked the world into thinking they lost the soda war, while building an empire so massive that even if the entire world stopped drinking soda tomorrow, Pepsi wouldn't miss a single beat. The rivalry was never about red versus blue. It was about controlling every single craving you feel from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep. And no matter which can you open, both of them already have your money.